the West is so tough.
Mm-hmm.
Who else in the West right now? I shouldn't say who else. Who in the West do you think needs to make an additional move or moves the most right now?
In the Western Conference?
Yeah. The Lakers are probably
Lakers, yeah, they need to do something. You know, they haven't really much done anything other than their rookies and a new head coach.
The Warriors probably still want to. We know that they were pushing hard at a star, but it looks like that's not there for them.
Right. Yeah. I don't think there's any other move they could make unless it's a big trade that eventually happens, but I just don't see it. I look at a team like, I think Denver can use some help. You got to look at who they've lost over the last couple of years. Like, and all they've added is Russell Westbrook. Like, and their rookie is hurt too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Holmes.
DeRon Holmes. He's banged up. So he's going to miss a while.
Yeah, he was going to play.
He was going to play, right? They were counting on him, you know? And so that they could use some help out there.
Do the Kings belong on that list? My honest opinion is
yes.
You're
but I was waiting for a but there. They need to do something. You know, I don't know what it is. You know, Monty talked a couple of weeks ago about the core being set and everything like that. You know, I reported you guys, I don't think they'll use the mid-level at all. I think they'll sit on that. And so if they do make a move, it's by way of trade. I mean, I just don't see how they can believe their 3/4/5 rotation is set.
They need some front court help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't here, obviously. My understanding is I know you did something about John Collins, and then I think some other people in town ran with that a little bit or picked it up. Is that true?
Man, dude, it wasn't just other people. Overseas started talking about that. And here's the thing, I've brought up John Collins for a while, you know that. And then we had Tim Montemayor, who does a radio show out there in Salt Lake, talked about John Collins.
He used to work on this station.
Oh, yeah, back in the day. Yeah, he came on, and he was singing the praises of John Collins. He thought John Collins would fit in perfectly.
I really don't want him if Monty
right.
Go ahead, yeah.
but he was seeing eye to eye with me, and you know, I did this whole rant. You know, Monty was at home riding his Peloton. Probably, I said he needs to be listening to the show and go out there, drive and get John Collins because he's still, to me, the best fit that's available out there for the Kings.
Mm-hmm. What would it probably cost them? Do you have any idea?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, Montemayor, you know, he came on last week talking about how the Jazz owner, Ryan Smith, really isn't trying to add salary, invest in a whole lot of money. And, you know, when you look at Danny Ainge, everybody's saying, well, Danny's driving a hard bargain for this and a hard bargain for that. And to me, it sounded like when we had Tim on, the owner and the GM aren't seeing eye to eye. They're on two different paths. You know, if we're just spitballing it, probably a player of Kevin Huerter's ilk and maybe a protected first. Like I'm talking, that's what I give up, a protected first. We had Tony Jones on. Mm-hmm. He said, hey, if you want John Collins, you can have him.
Right.
You know, so I can't imagine the asking price being super duper high. One thing we talked about last week with the Lowry Markkanen situation, once that was taken care of, now does this mean Utah is looking to do business? Are they open for trades now? And so we'll see here over the next few weeks.
Tim Montemayor. That's nice that he came on. I've known him a long time. He used to work at this station when we were in the other building, and after the show, we would play wiffle ball. And one time, I think he was filling in or something. He'd done a lot of shows over there. And he comes out, we're playing wiffle ball, and he comes out in an Antoine Walker jersey, I'll never forget, which was at least 3 sizes too small for him. He comes out and he grabs a bat and he goes, let me show you how to hit this. And I'll tell you, Jay, I was pitching. He might have heard it, but he didn't see it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But you threw some heat.
Blake Snell. Okay, Blake Snell.
Yeah, and he was on his merry way. Have a nice ride home, Tim Montemayor.
That was it?
I'm going to text Monty that right now. Let's see what he says back.
Absolutely true.
Oh, my
absolutely
gosh.
True. Yeah.
Man.
But I'm glad it's nice that he came on.
Yeah, he came on with us. Yep. Created a big following out there, and he was not biting his tongue. I mean, he was saying some things about that organization that I don't think anybody has said. Pull back the curtain a little bit. And like I said, you know, a lot of people say, well, Danny Ainge, what is he doing? You know, how come he isn't making this trade or he's asking for too much? And I feel like Ainge is handcuffed by the owner at this point. It was fascinating what he had last week for us.
What is your best guess as to where the Kings are? My guess right now is that they know that they probably could use some help here or there, but they're going to wait and see what's available at the deadline, maybe a little before, and they want to see how this all fits together before they do anything else.
I agree with you because that's how Monty operates, right? Very measured with it. But who's out there? Maybe somebody else will come up that he's more enamored with. Here's the thing about John Collins that, I didn't think about until a few days ago. Wes Wilcox was in Atlanta, I believe, when John Collins was there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe Wes would know what kind of player, person John is. And if they haven't done a move or aren't interested, it's making me second guess, is John Collins the right fit? Not from a basketball standpoint, but from a locker room culture, whatever it may be. Like, I would think Wes would know what John Collins could bring to the table.
He's really an interesting player. I used to talk with Jerry about him because Jerry had connections with Atlanta.
Yeah.
Remember, Atlanta was trying to trade him for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'd say, they don't like him. And Jerry would tell me, he said, no, that they do like him. They paid him probably too much money. That was the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then they couldn't find anybody else who thought he was worth what they were paying him. And, there were times there were stretches where it looked like with him and Trey, like, ooh, they had something, but it just they never established any momentum. And then he was on his way to Utah, and his numbers, like you say, you look at his numbers like, wow, you need that guy. How come no one else wants this guy?
Right.
It's a little odd.
It's a little odd, Whitey, and people
I'm not
say
suggesting he's a bad guy at all. I'm not suggesting.
Right, but what's the deal?
Yeah.
Is it empty numbers? Is it numbers, that don't attribute to winning? And people will bring up his contract, 26, I think he's owed. I just read a report that, Jalen Suggs is eligible for an extension where he's going to be making northward of $30+ million.
Ooh.
I think the contracts now are just so out of whack. 25, 26 now. That's
Starts to become like reasonable.
Reasonable now. Exactly. And so, I would not be afraid of John Collins for financial reasons.
Mm-hmm.
That would not be the reason. But I don't know the Kings' financials. Maybe they don't want to add any more payroll. Maybe they don't want to go into the luxury tax. I don't know. But to me, from a basketball standpoint, I would love John Collins.
I think that John Collins is theoretically obtainable. I think Jeremy Grant, maybe. I think Kuzma. I think, and we've talked about all these guys, Cam in Brooklyn, and also Dorian Finney-Smith. So you've got guys who, on the surface anyway, look like they would be really good fits, and you could go get them. So I think maybe the Kings look and go, we're not sure we need those guys now. We might. We don't want to give up what they cost right now, so let's see what happens with the market. Don't you think that's probably where they are? Or maybe they say, everyone loves these guys, but we don't like them.
We don't like them. Yeah, that's that's kind of how I feel like it is, Whitey, and here's why. We've been talking about these guys forever.
Yeah.
We've been talking about, my guy DeMar in Chicago, Zach LaVine. We were talking about all these guys, but we barely mentioned DeMar DeRozan.
Mm-hmm.
So it leads me to believe everybody we're talking about, they could have had. They could have had him in June, July, August. They could have met Kyle Kuzma. They could have had him at the trade deadline. They could have done all these moves. It leads me to believe that they don't value them and think the same way we do, that these are players they want to add to the roster. There has to be somebody else they have their eye on.
Jeff Petrie used to say, if you're going to lead the orchestra, you got to turn your back to the audience.
Ooh.
So that's where
is that what Monty's doing, right?
Yeah.
He's not,
it's like, all these people.
Right. No, I'm looking this way. Yeah.
Right.
I believe in Monty McNair.
But it looks like there are things that could be done there if they get to a point where they feel like, all right, we got to do these things. Thing is, if you wait till the deadline, prices are only going to go up, aren't they, Drapes?
You would think.
Prices are going to go up.
Yeah, I think there would be more buyers, teams, especially, with the play-in tournament teams that might think they're one player away, more competition, But like we said last year, the Drew Holiday, Dame Lillard situation, that got resolved late in the offseason. There's still time to make a move if you're the Sacramento Kings.
And I know we've talked about this too. Don't you think that they feel they may have a lot of what they're missing right now in Kevin Huerter? If Kevin Huerter can be anything close to what he was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And that's one of the things we talked about. Like, do you give Huerter a 10, 15 game window, see what he can do. And if he plays like he did 2 years ago, all right, we're good. We're fine. He can fill in admirably. Even if Kevin Huerter is playing at a high level, Whitey, I still think they need some help at the 4 and 5, unless Orlando Robinson, they think, is the answer.
I know. And that's the thing that's troubling because it seems so obvious, right?
Right.
It's like, well, he does it for a living. Why doesn't he? He doesn't see it. And what's wrong with me?
Right.
It's a very popular basketball question right now, but is it even worth getting into? Well, we're going to get into it next on Sactown Sports.
Sacramento weather is brought to you